Okay. All right, we're going to go and get started. And actually, perfect timing because I saw Shelly Baird in Hanford, California just got connected. I saw you muted your microphones right away. Thank you. That's perfect. If you can hear me at Shelly Baird, go ahead and wave your hands. Okay, good, good. So audio's coming through great. We're seeing you just fine. I heard you at the first time you got connected. We're going to go and get started on the program because we're about 5 after 1 Eastern, so 12:05, and then obviously 10:05 for you folks out in California. So we're going to go and get started. I first of all want to welcome you all to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. My name is Jerry Shockey. I'm the manager of the youth and educational programs here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, and we're excited to bring to you today one of the greats of all time, Mr. Dan Hampton. And the Heart of the Hall of Famers series, the real idea and premise behind this program is really to convey what it takes to get into the Hall of Fame beyond the athletic ability. We know our Hall of Famers are awesome, awesome examples of skill and athleticism, but as Mr. Hampton will share with you today, it took so much more than that. It took the 6 pillars of character that you guys are studying, the trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship, and a whole lot more. Things like selflessness, things like accountability, things like courage and determination. These are all character traits that it takes to get enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But I have a secret for you guys, and I don't think it's much of a secret, but these are character traits not just to being a great football player, but these are character traits to being a Hall of Famer in everyday life, whether it's being the very best student in your classroom, or whether it's being the best brother or sister at home, whether it's being the best athlete on your team, whether it's being the best church member at your church, whatever it is that you're affiliated with. Those character qualities are going to help you excel in anywhere that you so choose. So before we get to the introduction of our featured speaker, Mr. Dan Hampton, today, I would like to thank, because it took a team of folks to make this possible. And first and foremost, again, we have to thank our partners at Extreme Networks. I know Gene Mickelson's there with Mr. Hampton and Michael Cavelli. Thank you very much for Gene. We send her all over that part of the country to make these happen in St. Louis and in other areas that she's traveling all around in that territory. So thank you, Gene, for always. She's my bud. We get to hang out a couple times a year at different conferences across the country. So thank you, Gene. I appreciate that. And we'd have to thank the folks at Gower School District. They are the ones that have opened their doors today and allowed Mr. Hampton to come in there and allow us to do this broadcast. So without them, it wouldn't be possible, especially Gower Middle School is where we're stationed at. I think it's assistant principal Rebecca Loretta. And my apologies if I butcher your names, but Tammy Lane, Tracy Murphy, and a special shout out to my good friend Kevin Newbert there now, who we've been testing over the last month, making sure this technology is jiving. So Kevin, thank you for everything you've done to help make this program possible. We have to thank the teachers with the schools that are participating, because without you, this is not possible. This program is not possible. And then last but definitely not least, we have to thank the students, because you guys are the stars of the show today. You will be the ones driving the program with your questions, while Mr. Hampton will have some opening remarks and we'll show a quick video highlight of his career, a 30-second highlight film. The rest of the program is going to be driven off the character-related questions that you guys have coming up here. So what I'd like to do is give the opportunity for all the schools to be recognized, and when I ask you to when I call upon your school, feel free to give a shout out. I know the students that are with Mr. Hampton, you have to plug your ears for a second in case they get too loud, but also the other schools as well. So when I call upon your school, unmute your microphone and give a shout out. So let's go to, let's stay there at Burr Ridge, Illinois, with Gower Middle School. Gower Middle School, make yourselves known. All right, good start, good start. Sometimes the groups first time we do it, and they're not too enthused at first till they get into it. So great start to the program. I love your enthusiasm, Gower. Let's go to Hanford, California. Shelly Baird, if you want to unmute your microphones and give a quick shout out. Shelly Baird, I see you guys there. If you want to unmute your microphones. One last chance, Shelly Baird. Okay, all right. So for whatever reason, can you wave if you can hear me? Oh, go ahead. Okay, go ahead, Shelly Baird. Okay, I thought so. Okay, and then last but definitely not least, we got to go to Waldorf, Maryland. If Thomas Stone High School, if you guys want to give a shout out, go ahead. All right. So, okay. Well, what we lack in quantity, we obviously have in quality there in Waldorf, Maryland. So, thank you very much. And Shelley Baird, I'll email you guys after we get started and see what's going on there to get things worked out. But what I'd like to do now is just go ahead and go to the introduction of our featured speaker, and that's Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Dan Hampton. He was, first of all, he's a Bears first pick, 4th overall in the draft, in the 1979 draft. He was nicknamed Danimal, and it might come up in the conversation where he got that nickname from, a name that you guys would recognize, John Madden. You might know the story, or maybe have done it and saw it in research, but I'm sure we can get it and get that in there. But it was really known, he was known for that, for his ferocious style of play. He had an immediate impact as a player, as a rookie, a versatile player. He played both defensive tackle and defensive end. He was named first or second team All-Pro choice 6 times as either defensive end or defensive tackle. He was elected to 4 Pro Bowls, and he was born in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. But we like to recognize them for more than just what they did on the field. Currently, Mr. Hampton's a co-host for a syndicated Pro Football Weekly television show where he spent a lot of his career as in radio and TV broadcast, approaching his 20th season on air. Mr. Hampton was a color commentator for NFL games on NBC in the early 1990s and also called the XFL games for the networks in 2001. And students, you just do some search on the XFL. You'll get a kick out of that one. Hampton is part of the Gridiron Greats promotion to raise funds for retired NFL players in need. So where we see they're on the field, off the field, but also there, when you start talking about that pillar of citizenship and caring, you'll see this is where our Hall of Famers really shine. He also participates in One for the Kids annual golf tournament that raises funds for various charities that support children in the Chicago area. Hampton's also a spokesperson for companies like Chevrolet and Firestone. And not too long ago, I guess it is too long. It was 9 years ago now to think about that. In 2005, he actually threw out the first pitch of a Chicago Cubs game. So especially the fans there at Burridge probably enjoy knowing that. So with that being said, before I ask him to share his opening remarks, what I would like to do is play a video for you guys of his career. Very brief 30-second video.
For 12 seasons, Dan Hampton was a cornerstone of the Bears defense, playing both end and tackle. Number 99 earned the nickname Danimal for his ferocious style of play. A highlight of Hampton's career came in Super Bowl 20, when the Monsters of the Midway collected 7 sacks in the Bears' 46-10 victory.
Okay, if all of you want to mute your microphones for a second and join me and give a warm round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Dan Hampton.
Thank you.
The microphone's yours, sir.
All right, thank you, Jerry, for that wonderful introduction. And how long did it take you to scrape together those 3 clips of me? Archives. Great to be here at Gower. For those of you across country, I live a mile away, so it was really convenient for me to come. I'm excited about the opportunity to speak to some young people today about leadership and the important character traits that, you know, if you're going to be successful in life, there's a lot of people that will try to tell you, delude you, and make you think that character traits aren't important. That's a mistake to believe that. You know, the things like honesty, integrity, hard work, all the things that we're going to talk about today is the most important thing that you can think about as you grow into young adults. And then, you know, and you'll realize that when you have children. I've got a 19-year-old daughter who is a college scholarship athlete at South Florida playing volleyball. And my 11-year-old son goes to a grade school down the street here. So, you know, as I look back on my career, I do know that it'd be easy for you to think that cutting corners and just getting by and saying that's good enough might get you through some situations, but in the big picture, the more you realize that, you know, you only get one chance to go through life, and when you have a test tomorrow's Friday, you're going to have a test. I always had a test on Friday. And you know what? When I was your age in 8th grade, I didn't realize at that time how important it was to always try your best. Always try your best. One of the guys that's in that Pro Football Hall of Fame, a guy by the name of Alan Page, he played for the Minnesota Vikings, and then he played 3 years here, and I got to play with him my first 3 years as a Bear. He used to say, my dad only told me one thing as a rule of thumb in life. He said, you know, if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability. Now, if you don't want to do it, or you can't do it, or you don't think you got time to do it, then okay. But if you say, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to take a test, or I'm going to go run a mile, or whatever it is, whatever you do, you decide to do, whatever you take on and as a challenge, then you do your very best. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, Jerry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hampton. And actually, you mentioned the name Alan Page. For those that are interested, on October 27th, I know my friend Gene Mickelson is going to be in Minneapolis for that. Alan Page is doing the same type of program on October 27th from Centennial School District in the Minneapolis area. So great person to bring up, is Mr. Hampton knows better than I do, the type of character that Alan Page has. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate around, and we'll go 2 questions from each school. We'll start with the students at Gower Middle School and go to Shelley Baird and then Thomas Stone. But I just want you guys to keep this in mind. It's a character program, so obviously we want to ask character-related questions. But think about this. There have been over 23,000 players that have played in the National Football League since it started in 1920. There are only 287 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and you're talking to one of them. So when you think about all the stars today in the NFL, when you think about the Peyton Mannings and the Aaron Rodgers and the Richard Shermans and the Matt Fortes, or I guess we'll go with a couple of Chicago Bears, the Jay Cutlers, when you think about those guys, think about the fact that they aspire to be in Mr. Hampton's shoes. And I would imagine if they know a little bit about his off the field, things that he's been able to do off the field, that they would aspire to be the person he is off the field as well. So keep that in mind today. You're talking to one of the greatest football players ever. When you talk about someone who's exceptional in any given area, whether it's in sports, whether it's a doctor, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's a teacher, the people that achieve that pinnacle of success, we can all learn from them, no matter what the area is. So you're talking to one of those people that have achieved the pinnacle of success. And then I'll just remind schools, and you're doing a great job already, is to mute your microphones before and after you ask your question. Obviously, our friends there at Gower cannot, because that would be muting Mr. Hampton's response. So as the students are doing a great job in Gower, just keep a reminder that your microphone's always on, so we need you quiet in the background. So with that being said, we're going to start with a couple questions from Gower. Gower, if you want to start the program off with a question, you can either shout it out from there, or if you even want to come up on camera beside Mr. Hampton, if you're on camera and ask the question to him, that's fine as well.
Okay. So we've got a young man coming up here right now.
Sure.
Come around here. Put your head in there so they can see it.
And Gower, if you want to queue up the next person, you can do that.
All right, so if you could go back in time, is there anything you wish you could have changed that would help you become a better character?
Absolutely. Very nice question. Thank you, son. Let me just tell you this. I was born in Oklahoma, but my dad and mom moved me and my brother and sister to outside of Little Rock, Arkansas when I was 5 years old. So that's all I've ever known. And Arkansas is a great state, and a lot of great people there, and I miss it. I was just there this past Friday. But growing up, I grew up on a 40-acre farm, and we had to get up every morning, and we had to take care of the animals, feed the cows, the pigs. In the winter, you got to put hay out. We learned hard work. And my dad worked for IBM back in its infancy before it became the huge company it is today. But he wanted us to understand that you got to think about life as what you put in, you'll get out. And that's an old cliche, and you'll hear it a million times, you folks, oh, you're not going to get anything out if you don't put it. It's true. It's absolutely true. And as I was growing up, I had an idyllic life. I played football in 5th and 6th grade, and I was the biggest kid in school, the fastest kid in school, because I grew up on a farm. I mean, I could haul hay, and I never got tired. Anyway, I was looking forward to playing in junior high, and a month before I went to junior high in 7th grade, and I would have been starting for the junior high team. I fell out of a tree almost 40 feet up, and I hit the ground just like I was standing. I was a limb cracked, and I hit the ground. And I woke up, I was in an emergency room, and then they had to operate on my legs, and I had broken the tibia and fibia in both legs, and then my right heel was crushed, and they had to remove half of it and put a metal plate and 5 screws in it. And my left arm was broke. So after a couple of days of, kind of getting over the shock of that, the doctor came in and he said, I understand you're a football player and you got high hopes and all this, but you're going to have to temper that because you're going to have a hard time walking, let alone playing football, a contact sport. And, I was in a wheelchair for, I was in the cast for 4 months, and I was in a wheelchair for a couple more months after that. It was quite a bit to get over it. But anyway, so I believed the doctors, and my mother and father were musically inclined, and so they had taught me how to play guitar, so I joined the band. I started playing saxophone. Then I learned how to play piano, and I can play 6 different instruments. I probably would have never done that if I would have just been concentrating on football. But see, when one door closes, another opens. And not only that, I was always thinking, and just like you're thinking, what do I want to be when I grow up? Do I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a salesman, whatever, football player, whatever. I never really thought about playing football because I'd been told that I'd never play again. As things went on, my dad got sick with cancer, and he died when I was in 8th grade. And if you could ask me whatever of course it'd be that my father would not have become ill. He was a fantastic role model. I feel sorry for you kids. When I was growing up, we had great role models. We had John Wayne and guys like that. They're strong and took care of people, that cared about the country. All these different things. Now you're inundated with all this trash about, it's cool to act like you don't care or to be anti-establishment, all this stuff. So I had great role models, but my dad was the first and foremost role model that I'll ever have. And it's because, he took care of his family. He was loved by everyone. When he passed away, our little church had like 600 people come to the funeral because everybody, loved him. But as I, got over that and got into high school, one of the coaches kept saying, "Hey, I've watched you, walk and all this. You can play again." And during the summer, I'd be hauling hay, and I don't know if any of you guys have ever hauled hay. Well. By guys, it'll give you a workout, and if you can haul hay, you can pretty much do anything. Anyway, so I was talked into going back out and playing football, and how lucky was I? Because when I went back out, I a bunch of the kids that you do it all the time, you kind of take it for granted. If you it'd be cool to drive a Ferrari, but if you drove it every day, it would be a big deal. Well, I hadn't got a chance to play in a long time. And so when I had a chance to play again, I really, appreciated it so much. And the good Lord blessed me with the big frame. I'm 6'5". At that time, I was about 230 pounds. And I knew that my mom, she worked 6 days a week at a liquor store, 12 hours a day, just to put food on the table. And I knew that I'd never have a chance to go to college. And my father's wish before he passed away is, that all of us kids would get a chance to go and pursue a college education. So I know that was my best avenue. So, man, I threw myself into it. And, you see a lot of guys in the NFL today. They're very highly paid. And I can see how sometimes maybe they wouldn't be as motivated because, when you're hungry and you realize there's no food in the refrigerator and it's still a day to go before your mother gets paid, you get hungry. And I knew that I wanted to make something of myself, not only for my family, but for my dad. It's one of those things where we all, at some point in your life, you realize, okay, this is who I am. And you hope that it's a good thing. And I'm not saying that I haven't made mistakes in my life. And I make, I still make some mistakes today. But I can always say that I honestly want to try to do my best no matter what. And if I could change that, boy, it'd be great, because like I said, he was the best role model that I'll ever would have had. And I could have learned so much more if, he hadn't passed away. All right, next question.
Yep, go ahead, Gower. And then we'll go to Shelley Baird. So be ready, Shelley Baird.
What advice would you give to us about learning how to be leaders and have good character?
Okay, great question, hon. A leader isn't the guy that is really good at doing jumping jacks as a football player, or the guy that knows how to call heads or tails at the right time. A leader is who you look at when you need direction and things aren't going well. If everybody's making straight A's, everybody's happy, everything's great. Hey, but when you got some guys making D's, or you got some football guys, that are struggling and they're getting beat, and they want guidance. And that's what a leader is. It's someone that not only cares enough to make a difference, but they'll show you the way. And I was very fortunate on all the teams that I ever played on. I guess it was just one of those things. I wanted to be the bell cow. Now, you folks are from the city, you don't know what a bell cow is. In the country, we'd have like the bossy cow, okay? You've all got an aunt that's a bossy aunt, right? And all the other people in the family follow her, whatever she says. Well, that's a bell cow. They're the ones that make the decision, say this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. And I always wanted to be a leader because, if I can exemplify my high, commitment and performance by doing it, I don't really have to say anything. A lot of guys want to give you the jaw and tell you how to do it. Well, no. Anybody that wants to watch a leader, they want to see how it's done, and they want to see exemplary, commitment and effort to achieve the job. And I was always blessed because not only was I always a captain, but man, I had some great guys in college. I played at Arkansas for a guy named Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz is one of the legendary college coaches, and we had a number of really, really fine players, and they were captains. And then when I got here, Walter Payton, the great Walter Payton, was a captain. Gary Finsick, myself, Jimbo Covert, all those guys, obviously all pro caliber type players and people. But most important thing that I could try to impart is that right from wrong. And we had this rule in college. It wasn't that we had to be in by 10 o'clock or we couldn't do this or we couldn't do that. Right from wrong. Most of everybody knows, hey, what's right, what's wrong. And you don't really need to be told what the difference is. But if you do the right thing every time, or you're going to live a really, really prosperous life. Because you all know guys or people that would do the wrong thing. And they would do it for, various reasons. They wanted to have fun. They wanted to be cool. They wanted to, hey, do the right thing. And you know what? I know it sounds square and all that, but do the right thing, man. I tell you what, that's what leaders do. And if you want to be a leader, if you want to make something of yourself, to make yourself someone that your family, your community, and everyone around you can be proud of, do the right thing. And if you do it the best you can do it. All right, who else we got as a question?
We're going to go to Hanford, California. If you got a couple questions there in Hanford, California, if you want to mute your microphone and ask your first one. Loud and clear, please.
How did it feel to lead your team to the championship?
It was great. What part of California are you? Northern, south, what?
Central.
Yeah, well, we had to play the Rams back when the Rams were Los Angeles. But, there's Joe Montana and the 49ers they were almost a dynasty. I think they won 5 Super Bowls over 12 years, something like that. Well, here in Chicago, the Bears have been back to 1 Super Bowl, but they didn't win it. So the one I was on, it was kind of like Halley's Comet. It only came once in a blue moon. And the people here in Chicago are still really, really appreciative of that team and the guys that played on the team. But how did it feel? It felt like, and my son has got this. He's 11 years old. And when he does something, or he mows the yard, or he's cleans up his room or whatever, he'll say, "Dad, how did I do? How's it look? How's it look?" He wants to be commended on it, right? Everybody wants a pat on the back. Everybody wants, to be appreciated. Well, that's the way we felt. I was 28 years old. I'd been here 7 years, and when I got here to the Bears, even though we had a great player in Walter Payton, we weren't a very good football team. And I'd been on good football teams in college, and I didn't like feeling like a second-class citizen. Ooh, the Raiders, ooh, the Dallas Cowboys. It was like the Bears. Yeah, right. It was kind of like a validation. We wanted to make a statement. And even though we only went to and won that one Super Bowl, we won more games in 5 years than any team in NFL history. We could never keep a quarterback healthy. That 5-year period, we had 8 different starting quarterbacks, and we still won more games than anybody in history. That means, the 49ers, Tom Brady, and the Patriots, all of them. But it was a great team. John Madden still, to this day, every time I see him, when I go back to the Hall of Fame, he'll shake his head and smile and say it was the greatest team I ever saw. And the way I look at it, if you've got a video game named after you, you gotta have some clue about, who's pretty good. So I'm taking his word for it. We're pretty salty. Who else has got a question? Yes, sir.
So me?
Yep.
What do you think your life would be if you never played football?
Okay, that's a great question, because and this is important for you to understand. My mother and father, they taught us right from wrong, okay? And we all know, and when you're getting to the age of 9th, 10th, 11th grade, some kids are smoking, some kids are, stealing beer or what. I never did. And you know what? I wanted to do the right thing. And I'll be honest with you. I was scared to hurt my mother, and I didn't want to do something that would, because we were running on fumes, right? And I didn't want to cause any trouble. And at the end of the day, I had kind of gotten into a rock band, and I was playing music. I was a bass player. I still play music with some guys from the Super Bowl team today. Otis Wilson and Steve McMichael and I have a band. We play festivals in the summertime. But anyway, that crowd, musicians, right? Rock stars, wannabes, they were smoking dope and doing all this stupid stuff. And it really turned me off. But most importantly, I knew that that's not the way I wanted to be. I didn't want to go down that road. So what would I have done if I hadn't have played football? I don't really know, but I do know this. My wife and my mom both marvel at the fact that I can do so much. I could build a house. I could work on motors. And like I said, part of the thing about when you grow up poor, you value certain things. And my first bicycle, I got out of the dump and used 6 different ones, take pedals, take the spokes, take the tire. I put one together. Well, guess what? Yeah, that may sound, like Raggedy Ann, but guess what? Now, when my kid's bicycle breaks, I can fix it. I don't need to pay somebody. I can do it. So I don't know what I would have done, but I always felt like, it would be something along the lines of, maybe mechanical engineering, something like that, because that's what I was studying in college before, I got out. So I don't really know. But, the funny thing about life is you don't get to go back and say, okay, make another choice because you don't get to play football. It's one of those deals where when I was in college, Lou Holtz made us memorize this poem prayer, and we would say it before every game. And it goes like this: today is the beginning of a new day, and God has given me this day to use as I will. But what I do today is important because I'm exchanging a day out of my life for it. When tomorrow comes, this day will be gone forever, leaving in its place that which I have traded. I want it to be gain, not loss, good, not evil, success, not failure, in order that I shall never regret the price I paid for it. Because in the end, the future is nothing more than a whole string of nows. And that's what every day is. Every day is a myriad of choices. I had a business meeting an hour north of here. Then I got to go downtown and do a television show. Then I've got 3 things to do. I really didn't have a whole lot of time today, but you know what? The right thing is to come and do this because I said I was going to do it, and so I'm here. So what I'm saying is we all make choices, we all make decisions of how we're going to deal with those choices. And I don't know what else to say other than I've been very, very fortunate that in my life I've been given an awful lot of what can you say? Insight from a lot of very, very special people. Most of those guys were coaches. My mother, my father. You can, if you really want to do the right thing, you'll find the people that are going to do the right thing. Whether it's your teacher, if it's not your parents, it could be your teacher, it could be a cousin, it could be somebody that lives down the block. You'll know, and all you have to do is ask them. They'll be more than happy to help you if you got some decisions you got to make. All right, who else got a question?
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. We're going to shoot across to Waldorf, Maryland, but I think students, as you heard from what he said, whatever it is that he would have done if he hadn't played football, I think you know that he would have done it to the best of his ability. So let's go to Waldorf, Maryland. Thomas Stone, go ahead.
How's it going? What was the first thing you did when you got signed with the NFL?
First thing I did. You really want to know? I was playing up in Arkansas, and let me remind you, like I said, when you go to, I think I got $8 a month for a laundry check. So, I mean, nobody got paid. You worked your butt off, but you know what? It was a great time in my life. That was the best time of my life, probably. But, hey, pro football, pro meaning professional, you get paid. I couldn't believe it. So my mother was driving a $300 old beat-up Cadillac, and after I was drafted by the Bears, I was the fourth guy taken in the draft. Today, it'd be worth $20 million. Back then, 1979, it was $460,000 for my 4 years. Now, in today's money, it doesn't sound like much, but back then, it was like, hitting the lotto. Anyway, so I flew to Chicago, and I met the media and George Hallis and the head coach and Buddy Ryan. And then I flew back to Little Rock. My college is in Fayetteville, and I flew out of Fayetteville and then flew into Little Rock. And my mother picked me up at the airport. And there was three, the ABC, CBS, and all the TV stations were there at the airport with their camera crews, right? And they wanted to, I was the highest pick ever in the history of the state of Arkansas, blah, blah, blah. Make a big deal out of it. Anyway, my mother's, so I'm doing the interviews, and then my mom pulls up in her old Cadillac, and it kind of like seizes us up right there on camera. And so the very first thing I did, I told her, I said, let's go. We're going to Twin City Motors, and I let her pick out a car. And I bought her a nice big Lincoln, big black Lincoln that she had always wanted. And the second thing I did was paid off the mortgage on our little farm. Like I said, when my father died, things were very tough. And, now here 8 years later, I was in a position to take care of my mother after all those years she took care of me. So that was the first thing I did. Oh, then the third thing, I bought myself a Corvette.
Let's go. Thomas Stone, if you have another question, go ahead.
What type of things did you do after your NFL career?
Say that again. What?
What type of things did you do after your NFL career?
What did I do after my NFL career? Okay. Let's see. I retired at 90. So 91 through 95, I worked for NBC Sports, covering NFL football. From then until today, I work for radio and television stations here in Chicago. I own two businesses. One is a security company. We provide security guards at banks and different other industrial establishments. And the other one does pre-employment screening, background checks, and drug testing. Like I said, I've got a 19-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. I love to play golf. Like I said, I'm in this band with these guys, and we play a bunch of really cool stuff. From Motown to some stuff today. So I stay really busy, but most importantly, I do a number of appearances, when you're dealing with young folks. And I remember when I was, I think 8th grade, 9th grade, somewhere in there, people came to my high school and they made us fill out what you wanted to be. And I didn't know what to write. I had no idea what to write. I never had any definitive thing. Like I said, my son's saying, "Oh, I want to be an engineer." My daughter says she wants to be a professional golfer. So they got that. I never really did, and that's really interesting because, a lot of guys will tell you that they said when they're in 8th grade, and I'm a big believer in goals. When I was in college, I wanted to make All-American. I wanted to be a first-round draft. A lot of that, but I never said I wanted to be in a pro football team. And maybe there's a lot of reasons for it. I didn't know what it would require. I didn't know if I was good enough. I didn't want to, I'd like to say I want to go to Mars, but it's impossible, right? You can't go. Well, why would I say I want to be in the Hall of Fame if it's impossible? I didn't know. But you know what? It's one of those things that to have goals is great. And to say I want to be this or be that or whatever. But man, it's amazing to me how many people achieve greatness. Not sitting around thinking about it, but going out there and working and getting it done. And I got to tell you, the most electrifying character I ever played with was Walter Payton. But he was also the greatest player I ever played football with. And you know what? The combination of just his personality, he was special in so many ways. In 1995, Walter had been retired 8 years. And we did a 10-year anniversary deal where we were going to, a reunion for the team from the '85 Super Bowl. And we had it down on Navy Pier at a place called Riva's, and it's a beautiful restaurant. If you ever come to Chicago, go. It's a beautiful place to eat. Anyway, we were all there, and there was a bunch of guys that had gotten fat, some lost hair, and this one was, doing that. Walter still looked like $1 million, and he could still play. Then 4 years later, on November 1st, 1999, he was dead. Died of cancer. And it's sobering when you see someone that's so vivacious and full of life, and then you see, hey, nobody's got a set deal. Everybody has to go out and make their own mark and take care of themselves. And all I can tell you is that I didn't know then where I'd wind up, but I'm now 57 years old, and so far so good. But I got to tell you, Lou Holtz will tell you that I probably worked harder than anybody he's ever had. He's had a jillion guys play for him. Hard work, whether it's a mother or if you want to be a nurse or a teacher or whatever. Hey, talent is great. But hard work triumphs over talent 90% of the time. Who else has got a question?
Okay, we're going to go back to the folks there at Gower, but if I can just throw in a quick question, Mr. Hampton. You talked about hard work, and you talked about some of the accomplishments, of being enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. What do you say to the student that busts his or her tail but does not get enshrined in the Hall of Fame, or maybe doesn't make it in the NFL, or maybe doesn't get an A on the test? I think we had a great example last year's Super Bowl of Peyton Manning. There's no harder worker or preparer than Peyton Manning, but he lost in the Super Bowl. What do you say to those students that face those setbacks, that maybe don't get the goal that they were going, even though they were working so hard for it?
He didn't lose. He got killed.
True.
And that's the thing about it. And you know what? I got to tell you, and I know I'm in the school network here and all that. There was no participation ribbons when I grew up. Hey, you go out and you work hard. And you know what? If you become an All-American, that's great. But if you don't, it doesn't mean that you didn't care or you didn't try or that you don't matter. You keep working harder and harder and harder. Pretty much everybody I played college ball with was, the best player on their high school team, okay? And then when I got to the pros, everybody I played in the pros with was the best player on their college team. That's just life, and it's all about achievement. And it doesn't mean that you fail if you don't become a Hall of Famer or you don't make All-Pro. I think, Jerry, you said I made All-Pro 6 out of the 12 years I played. I also went through 14 knee operations during those 12 years. So there was a lot of reasons why I wasn't always at my best. But I didn't cry, and I didn't say, oh, this is unfair. And hey, it just redouble, your efforts, and you go back and you keep trying. The little parable about the little engine that says, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. Next thing you know, you can. And that's the main thing. You never quit. You never quit trying. And you know what? It's special. And let me just say this. I didn't get to play football in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. Those are very formative years. You guys are right in the middle of it. I really wish I could have. I really do. But I didn't let it stop me when I started in 11th grade. A lot of guys knew things that I didn't know, and I had to get it. That's the way of life. You just make the best of whatever opportunity. And you know what? I taught my kid how to play gin rummy. And you know what? When I beat him at first, and he'd expect me to let him win, I said, no, I'm not going to let you win. I said, you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to fight, and you're going to have to earn it. And you know what? You can't cry because you got a bad hand. You just got to play it out and see what happens. And you'll be amazed. If you just keep trying and you do the right thing, how many times in life the right thing will work out. And like I said, going into the Hall of Fame. And by the way, for the folks, can you see this? This is the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame ring. I brought it here for the kids to look at. Don't drop it, but pass it around. Pass it around. But did you ever think, did I ever think that I'd be wearing a Pro Football Hall of Fame ring? No. The one thing is that I knew that once I started playing, whether I was in 5th grade or the last year as a professional, when I was so beat up and I could barely run, everything I had, I poured out. And you know what? A lot of guys, they retired and they thought they could still play. I never had to deal with that illusion. I knew I couldn't have gone another play, let alone another year, So, that's the way you need to think about life. And when my time is over and I'm going to be called, I'm just going to say, hey, I poured it out. I had the best time. And you know what? I did everything I could the way I wanted to do it, the right way, as best I could. It didn't mean that I didn't make mistakes. Yeah, I made a bunch of mistakes. But at the end of the day, everyone that knows me knows that if you go through life trying to give more than you get, you'll be amazed how wonderfully benevolent your life becomes. Because you know that, you've always heard that what goes around comes around. If you give good, you get good. So that's what I'd like to kind of leave you with.
Okay, let's go. We're going to go a question from each group, one from each. So we're going to go to Gower there with Mr. Hampton. If you can come up and make sure you speak up clearly. We'll go one group. It looks like we got about 10 minutes left before we conclude the program.
Another football player. They are the Gower Gladiators.
What work did you put into succeeding in sports?
What work? And this, again, work, and I got to tell you, I grew up, I wanted to work because I wanted to make my dad happy, okay? And a lot of people go to work because they want to make their wife and kids happy. And that's a great thing. A lot of people are lazy and they look for excuses not to work. But I think work is a great personal trait. And, honesty, integrity, all those, that means a lot. But you know what? Hard work is something, the sooner you understand it. And you know what? I was just like you. I'd try to ditch homework and I'd try to cut corners here and there. It didn't take long for me to figure out, hey, if I would have just did my homework, then 2 weeks later when we take the test, I remember what year Christopher Columbus came across the ocean blue, right? But if I go back and try to, so, just try to work hard at whatever you do. Now, did I work hard? Without question. Let me just give you an idea. Going into my senior year in college, in practices, we would have 3-a-days. We would be on the field at 6:30. That means you got to get up at 5 and go down and get taped up and all that. You got to be on the field from 6:30 to 8:30. And it was full contact for 2 hours. And then we got a break, and then we'd go eat lunch, and then we'd come back. We'd be on the field from noon until 1 to do special teams, a lot of contact for you gals, that's running into each other full speed, right? And it wears you out. And then we'd be back on the field from 4 until 6. And then after that, we had a huge stadium that we played in, would run the stadium steps. And then when we got done running the stadium up to the top and back 10 times, we'd do 100 up downs. And then practice was over. And that's practice. But, the summer before I worked unloading big trucks, made great money. At that time, it was like $9 an hour, which is like 50 now. But I loved it. And my boss at the trucking line, he would always make sure I got all the heavy stuff, tires, barrels, things like that. And I said, hey, that's a great workout. Well, I would unload trucks for 8 hours. And the trucks, in Arkansas in the summer, they're probably 140 degrees in the trucks. And so I'd get off at 11, I'd get home about 11:30. And I'd get my workout stuff on and I'd lift weights. 3 days a week, real heavy stuff, the other 2 lighter. But then I'd go out on the street and run at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd run 3/4 of a mile at a good clip and then turn and come back as hard as I could. And my heart would be beating so hard that it was out in the country, I'd lay right in the middle of the street until I got my air after about 10, 15 minutes. But I'd look up at the stars and I would say, nobody is working this hard. I deserve to be successful because I have outworked everyone. And maybe somebody did work harder. I don't know. I just couldn't believe it. And that's the way I wanted to go through life, that I worked harder than anybody. And like I said, I went to Arkansas as back then we got 30 scholarships. I think I got the 26th one. In other words, there's a bunch of guys they wanted before me. And one of my unwritten goals was, I want to be a first-round draft pick. And Buffalo Bills had the very first pick in the draft that year. They drafted a guy named Tom Cousineau. And then the second and the third guys was, a defensive lineman. And anyway, over the years, all those guys that for the other teams, Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Kansas City, they all told me, we should have took you. We should have took you. I could have been the highest drafted player and the first guy taken. To go from just a farm kid to, that position, how did it happen? I'll tell you how it happened. I worked really hard. And again, you can say work is one thing that, okay. Or you can embrace it and say, I can't wait. I cannot wait to get better today. And if you do, or you're going to have a great life, whatever it is you do, whether you're a nurse, a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever you do. If you just say, I can't wait to get better today, and I'm going to outwork everybody around me. And the next thing you know, great things will start happening to you. Who else got a question?
Mr. Hampton, let's go to Shelley Baird. Let's go to Hanford, California. You got a question? Go ahead and unmute there.
What does having character mean to you?
What does character mean?
What does having character mean to you?
Oh, thank you. Nobody tried to steal it.
What does having character mean to you?
Character is what you do when nobody's watching. Okay? It's just that simple. If your mom says, do your homework, make your bed, I'll be back in 3 hours, and you run downstairs and start watching TV, you're not doing the right thing. And again, I'm not holding myself up as somebody that always did it. I'm just saying, character is doing the right thing. Somebody dropped, $5 bill as they're walking down the street, pick it up and run and give it to them. You'll get 10 times that back in goodwill. I'm just saying, character is doing the right thing, and especially when nobody's watching. That's all it means.
Great. Thank you very much, Shelley Baird. And by the way, I did see you climb under the tables there, Shelley Baird. I don't know if the rest of the group saw you, but they had an emergency drill that the school had to do real quick. So we saw you guys. At least I did. But let's go to Waldorf, Maryland. Thomas Stone for your last question. Then we might have time to go one more from Gower and close out the program.
All right, we have one more.
If you could go back in time to your high school self, what would you tell yourself?
If I could go back in time to high school, what would I tell myself?
Yes.
Date the other cheerleader. I got to tell you, I wasn't part of the cool crowd. I didn't start playing football until I was 11th grade. And, back in the 70s, it was like the rock band era and all that. I was in a band. I had, hair down here. And, I wasn't into like the cliques at school and all that. And still to today, I used to tell my daughter when she was growing up about peer pressure. But the peer pressure. And I said, nobody told me this. It's just the way it was. I said, the only pressure that's going to be applied is going to be by me, because I'm not going to do what somebody tells me to do or expects me to do, even if I know it's the wrong thing to do. What would I change? I don't know. I wish I could go back and tell my friends, some of them that never really aspired to be a whole lot, things didn't work out and they didn't become a whole lot. And I'm not saying everybody's got to be a senator or a Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm just saying, hey, it's a big world out there. And you know what? If you go about things in a very simplistic way of doing things the right way and treating people the way you want to be treated, even today, a lot of people go, well, you don't seem like some stuck-up, highfalutin NFL Hall of Fame. I said, no. My mother always told me, treat people the way you want to be treated. It's a very simple thing, very simple. And I wish I could go back and tell a bunch of my friends and the guys I run, the people I run around with, hey, don't sell yourself short. So much is possible if you just keep believing and you keep working hard. And at some point, it all. Anybody else got a question?
All right, let's close out the program with Gower, and then we'll ask Mr. Hampton for closing remarks, and we'll conclude the program. So go ahead, Gower. One last question if you want to step up there and make it a good one. It's the last one.
Yeah, the gladiator here.
All right. Who was your inspiration to play football? And I'll speak about character.
Okay, very good. The inspiration to play football. It wasn't an individual. It was the Arkansas Razorbacks. And Chicago has, the lock on the public's, consciousness with the Bears. Chicago Bears. There's no other show. Well, in Arkansas, there's no professional teams. The Arkansas Razorbacks are the big deal. So I grew up, the Razorbacks were, and again, I like the aspect of it being a small state surrounded by bigger states. And, it's like the little guy in the fight, he's got to be tougher. And I like that concept. And when I got older, I wanted to play for the Razorbacks for that reason. And the other one was my father. He loved the Razorbacks. Some of these young people here, your folks love the Bears. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. But, if you get in a position where you could play for any sports team, you'd want to play for the Bears because your folks liked them. It was just that simple. I wanted to play for the Razorbacks. And you know what? Back then it was the Southwest Conference. And I know it's hard to believe, it's a long time ago, 30 years ago, whatever. But it was Arkansas and 8 schools in the state of Texas. And we couldn't play with Arkansas officials, but we had to play with Texas officials. And that's why we went to the SEC, and the Southwest Conference is no longer a conference. But anyway, it was the best conference in football back then. At one time, we had the top 5 of the top 8 teams in the nation were in the Southwest Conference. So it was a killer conference. But the team, we won the Cotton Bowl my freshman year. Junior year, sophomore year, not so good. My junior year, we won the Orange Bowl and beat the number 1 team in the nation, Oklahoma. And my senior year, we beat UCLA in the Fiesta Bowl. So I went to, great bowl games. It was a great time. We had a great group of guys from, Little Arkansas, a bunch of overachievers that just said, hey, we can be as good as Texas or California or Notre Dame or anybody else. And we were. I think we wound up number 3, number 2, and number 5, 3 out of my 4 years. So that's pretty good. Pretty good for a little place like Arkansas.
And Mr. Hampton, just to close out the programs, I see we get 2 o'clock here, 1 o'clock your time, and I know you got a few minutes to stick around, a few minutes afterwards, just to chit-chat with some of the students there before you have to head out to some of the engagements you have. But and all the things that you shared today, from your father being your role model to what you put in, you get out, to things that Alan Page said, do it to the best of your ability. Is there anything either A, you would like to reiterate, or B, is there something we didn't touch on that you'd like to share with these students to close out the program?
Well, first of all, again, I appreciate your attention. You know, I know it's one of those things that I don't know if this is mandatory for you to come, but I appreciate it. And I hope each and every one of you can take just a little bit away from what I've been trying to talk about here today. You know, it's real simple. You know, you've got all those things, integrity, character, all those 6 listed items. It all boils down to a couple of things. Hey, work hard and do the right thing. I mean, that's really it. Think about it. If we all tried to do the best we can do, and we studied, you know, we didn't, 10 minutes, that's enough. I want to watch this iCarly show or whatever. You know, I know them all, my kids watch them. But I'm just saying, at some point, you're going to realize 10 minutes ain't enough. You're not doing your best. You're not giving enough of your attention to it. And if we all, you know, start finding that point where we kind of get a realization about what is going to be required to be, you know, not only a good person, but a competent person, then the sooner off you will be. It didn't hit me until, you know, I was like 10th, 11th, 12th grade. That's when, like I said, I said, hey, if I've got a chance, I want to, you know, get a scholarship, because I would have got a chance to play college ball. Well, I was lucky. I was a big kid. There's other things you can do to work and put yourself in a position where maybe you could pursue a career after high school or college or whatever you wanted to do. You know, a bunch of really smart people always said, if you can find something that you like to do and get paid for doing it, you'll never have to work. And that's the way it was for me in football. I hate to say that it was just unbelievably natural, you know, once I left college to go and play 12 years in the NFL. And I've been very fortunate. You know, the good Lord has smiled on me, and I've been able to work in you know, the trades associated with football, you know, radio and television. But it's a great game. And for all you young men, you know, I wish the gals could play it too. But I would encourage you to play volleyball or soccer or anything. Like I said, my daughter was a great baseball player. She was a great golfer. She could do all of it, but she wanted to play volleyball. She liked the niche of volleyball. And she said, I'm going to do whatever I have to do. Well, she joined the club volleyball, and you guys were just getting to that point, where she went and she would have to go 4 days a week, and they'd work 3 hours a day, lifting weights, running, doing stuff. And you know what? She became a major college athlete. So anything you want to do, you can do if you just put your mind to it. And again, thank you very much. And I appreciate it, Jerry. I appreciate the opportunity. And like I said, I hope somebody can take a little bit of this with them as they go down that walk of life. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Let's all unmute and give him a warm round of applause and saying thank you.